Monday, August 1st, 2005.
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Welcome to That's a Rap Radio. This is your host, Carlos Cruz. Today we have an award-winning singer, songwriter, and composer, Suzanne Brindamore. Hello, Suzanne. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me here today.
Suzanne's a native of Maryland, and from what I hear, is the youngest of 5 children. From what I understand, that it was the guitar playing by your brothers that brought you into music. Can you explain a little bit of how that went around?
Yeah, sure. There were 3 older brothers in the family, and then my sister and myself. And they would play, great old songs from the 70s and 60s, and I just loved hearing them jam, and I always wanted them to teach me how to play something. I was kind of always pestering them, so I finally got my own guitar when I was about 12 and started learning, and with a little help from them, a little help from a class at school, and a lot of self-teaching, I began.
Well, from listening to your first or sophomore album, you come a long way, and miraculous music just playing. From just listening to the album itself, we had to get you on the show, plain and simple.
Thank you.
We hear that you're playing over at Jam & Java. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're doing a midday show. We're starting at 2:30. It's kind of something different on August 6th, next week. I have a lot of guitar students and some young people that like to come out, and those who don't like to be out late if they have work the next day or such. So we're just doing a midday show, get people out of the heat, and I'll have my full band with me, and they're phenomenal. It's the same guys that you'll hear that are playing on my CD.
Okay, and they're phenomenal. They are. That's Jam & Java playing over at Vienna, Virginia. If you have any questions, you can call Jam & Java at 703-255-1566, and that's on Saturday, next week, August 6th from 2:30 to 4. Right now, we want to bring to you some of the wonderful songs that Suzanne has created for us, and enough of my talking. Can you tell us a little bit about the first song we had, Change?
That's my favorite, actually, that song. I guess I like the message, and I like the way the music came together. It's kind of a song about hope, in a way, that says, there's really nothing that we can't change if we want to. I know a lot of people get stuck, and I'm one of those people who has gotten stuck. And it's a subtle message, but there's a message in there that sort of says, there are people who really feel like they have no value. And I say that, well, if you can walk into a store and do your transaction and give a smile to the clerk, then that is worth a lot more than most other things. And anybody can do that. Just about anybody can do that. So everybody has value, and that's sort of what that's about, I guess.
Question, and I will not tell you a lie. I am the bearer of this tragic plot, but I can't tell you why. And there are some things you can't explain. There are never things you cannot change. You've played inside your mind. You are the terror of your enemies, the ones you house inside. And there are some things you can't explain. There are never things you
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
Interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
I'd like to welcome you to That's Rap Radio. This is your host, Carlos Cruz, and I have with me Don Brody.
Hello.
Is a photographer and videographer out of the Washington, D.C. Northwest area, and he runs 528 Productions. He's been running the show for about 4 years now. If you want to contact Don Brody, you can contact him at donb118@yahoo.com. Some of his clients basically are Ledge Magazine and District Chronicle, who's currently doing some projects for. Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Can you tell me about some of the clients that you've been working with so far?
Well, there's a wide variety, but two of the ones that we've discussed is Ledge Magazine and District Chronicles. They're both great people. Shout out to Freddie.
What kind of projects basically are you working with on them?
Well, Ledge Magazine actually contracted me for a cover and a couple illustrations. District Chronicles is like a newspaper throughout DCPG.
I also understand that you have some background in advertising, public relations, and marketing services. How much basically do you use that in your photography and videography?
I use it every day. Try and stay constant, checking my emails, calling people, networking.
Today's show basically is for those who are interested in converting everything to a digital format. We know you're out there, you're still using film, which is probably very few number, or you want to upgrade basically to a larger, more expensive, with all the bells and whistles digital camera. That's what the next three parts are going to do basically. We're going to get you ready to start doing photography on a higher level. We're going to just basically talk about some points today. One of the main points that we have to talk about is for setting up your own budget. I know as well as Don knows that if you're going to start going into this field, especially on the level we're at, you're going to have to drop some bucks.
You got to price stuff out, you know.
Just give me an idea of you doing your photography. What equipment do you use?
Basically I shoot Canon Pro cameras, and that's not where it stops. You're talking about computers, printers, several devices.
Right, exactly. And we're going to cover that in the next two segments. But how much would you say for your set, what you would take out and to go do a shoot, how much have you just dropped on that, just round figure?
I'd probably say around $3,000, $4,000 in my bag.
Yep, I hear that because I've dropped about the same thing also, and that's just a low ball estimate. That stuff we can just pick up, take with us. If it breaks, that's no problem because we can always replace it. So basically the budget is, if you're going to want to go medium grade, you're going to want to go about between $5,000 and $1,000 or so. Mm-hmm. You got one of those Canon snapshots or stuff like that. If you want to go higher than that, then you're basically looking at a good $1,500 plus for that.
For sure, definitely.
I know Canon and a couple of others have come out with like the Rebel, which are about $1,000, and that's the intermediary right there for a lot of the stuff.
A notch below prosumer.
Yeah, basically, and that's a big buzzword that only came out a couple of years ago, which is prosumer, and everybody now is using that, and that is basically the convergence from just a regular user point and shoot to actually going out and attempting to make some type of money from this.
Exactly. But the truth is, though, you know, there's a lot of things you can do with these cameras, and they start with the lower ends. I'd aim for, like, the SLRs. That's where it's at.
Right. There's a lot of interchangeability. You got your lenses, especially. If you just look at a magazine article on Canon alone, you will see they love sporting their lenses on there. You see about 40 of them, and any photographer is just drooling because they wish they had all of that in their arsenal. Basically,
you can tell a white L. That's how it works.
Exactly, especially when you see all the sports shows, stuff like that. I'm basically looking to see what kind of equipment they got there. Where are they shooting with? How are they shooting? Stuff like that. Well, one of the other important things is once you get your budget, the other thing you have to consider is the resolution of the camera. Now, just to make sure everybody understands what I'm talking about, we're referring to basically the number of pixels captured by the camera's image sensor, and is measured in megapixels. So you have a 6 megapixel, 10 megapixel, 12 megapixel, then you start getting greedy with the 17,
all
you
the way
got
up to 22.
22, and of course within a year or so it's going to probably get
it's
larger.
gonna get larger.
It's going to
not
get
gonna
bigger.
stop.
Stuff. Remember, the greater the megapixel, the more you can enlarge the image before it becomes pixelated, and also the bigger the file size it becomes. So make sure you have good hard drives, you have good memory cards. I always use which I do not have behind me, which I normally do, is I have a portable drive that I just download all the photos to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when I'm out on the field. Do you do a lot of field work out there?
I do a lot of field work. I always carry my laptop with me. Speaking of which, I just invested in a 256 hard drive, which is very important. The camera I use is 6 megapixels. God only knows.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
22, you know what I mean?
Do you also do bracketing on your camera when you do it?
Occasionally, but for the most part, I shoot raw.
Right.
Just try and, nail the exposure every time.
Because I've noticed when I shoot, I always shoot raw, period. I don't think there's going to be an instance where I'm going to want to shoot JPEG, because I think that's going to just hurt me when I go into Photoshop and start going crazy on it. But what I've noticed is when I start bracketing, it jumps from 6 megabytes to 8 megabytes.
Oh, yeah.
For each.
Increases
So
the
it's
size.
just increasing on that also. That's another thing to take.
As well as when you're using those higher ISOs,
Mhm.
boost those sizes up.
The other thing we have to look at is when you're getting the camera, you're looking at the size, the weight, and the design. Is this something you want to put in your pocket? Because now Sony, I think it is, they came out with the Slim line, and that's a 5 megapixel camera. It's no bigger than a cigarette box itself, and you can just slide it out. It's nice.
Yes.
It takes a nice photo, but there's really not much you can do with it. You can point and shoot, just basically what it is.
Well, what you got going on now is a lot of the companies, they're peaking with the 6 megapixels. The size of the camera affects how much quality is in there as well, regardless of the megapixel size.
Right, because it's all about that CCD.
Yes,
and it doesn't matter if you're using the video camera or a digital still camera, it's all about that
You got
CCD.
that. You got it.
The other thing is interchangeable lenses. If you want to go from a zoom to a telephoto to a wide angle, it's not going to happen with a point and shoot.
No,
Plain and simple.
not
I
at
don't
all.
care what they have on. They might have that nice little lens that zooms out, zooms in. It's not going to be the same quality. Don't show up saying that you got a photography gig and you have a point and shoot and it has a little zoom button on it.
The elements that go into these zoom lenses for the SLRs is just incredible. And if you could get your hands on a prime, you're golden.
Well, the important thing I think we need to explain here is on the differences of zoom lenses when it's described. Because we know the inexpensive cameras, they lack the optical zoom lens. Just to be straight and clear, the optical zooms basically stands for, it moves the lens to magnify the subject. Just if you look at the actual SLR cameras, it's all glass and it's plastic on rotaries and grooves that move it. But when we're talking about digital, it's the computer inside the camera that basically captures a pixel and makes the pixel larger. That's why it looks all square and blocky.
You end up cropping the photo, and these pixels just get larger. That's where you get those square shapes on the face.
Mm-hmm.
You shot a portrait or something like that.
It looks like you're basically watching cops and they're just trying to blur out one of the guilty party. But we know they're innocent. They're innocent. Exactly. The other important thing we're looking at is the manual focus.
That's a really, really incredible thing to have. It's always a good thing.
Tell me how you use manual focus when you do a lot of your jobs.
Well, I like to do a lot of fast-paced stuff as well, and autofocus is great, but there's just times where you want to go to the manual focus.
What are some of the jobs that you've actually used manual focus for?
I shoot a lot of fashion and portrait stuff, and when I can, I try and crack into the manual focus, just get it dead on.
Right, exactly. I use a lot of manual focus when I'm working on the medium format style. For some reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's operator error. We know how that likes to go. But the manual focus, it's a lot easier to control on the medium formats, especially when you're working digital.
Yes.
Gotta love that 22 megabyte file just getting pumped down the pipe.
Exactly. And by the way, not too many of those medium formats have that autofocus besides some of the newer ones.
Exactly. You're looking at basically the Mamiya AFD and the Hasselblad H1. And I think they're coming out with a new version of the H1 I'll have to check out on that, and more information will be put on the website. All right, we're going to go over to a soft break. We'll be right back right after this.
You are listening to That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nickycruz.com.
All right, welcome back. I'm here with Don Brody for 528 Productions out of Washington, D.C. You can get more information about Don Brody on our website at www.nickycruz.com. Don Brody has been working for 4 years as a photography and videographer down in D.C. Don, tell me a couple of the stuff on the videography side of the house that you've been working on.
Well, basically, 528 is put together by me and my twin brother, actually.
There you
I started in film,
Mm-hmm.
and it went off into photography.
Right.
So he still does the film thing.
That's
do
good.
Lighting along a lot of the sets. And
So it's easier for you to be in two places at once, technically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shout out to Treehouse Entertainment, by the way.
All right, we were talking about some of the things, and before we went for our break, we were talking about our budget, resolution, size, weight, and design, the zoom lens, and our manual focus, and how important that is. Now, one of the other things you have to consider is storage, and that, I think, is where a lot of them get you. Because companies like Sony, they like to use the proprietary
Their
cards.
expensive.
Exactly. They've gone down in price. I remember seeing a 4 gig for about $800, a compact flash card,
Oh, yes.
4 gig for $800. Now it's down to about 3. And that
It's going down. The way I see the market moving, it's those hard drive cameras. As you see it in the videography world, they got the HD hard drive cameras. It's going to happen to these.
Yeah, and those are starting off at
SLRs.
60 gig right
Yeah.
there. I love to have a little compact flash card that has 60 gig on it. There will be no need for us to move that out. But we have different types of cards, and you got to be aware of which one of your cameras use that, because you have the compact flash, secure digital cards, smart media, and you also have the CD, DVD, digital burner cameras, which are nice, but right now the biggest ones that are being used are the smart media and the compact flash card.
Yeah.
I know my Canon uses a compact flash.
Yeah.
I like that one. Straight to the point, no moving parts. And that's the important thing that I've seen, because I work a lot of times in the IT field also. So I have an understanding of how a lot of these things are built. And if you have something as small as a compact flash card, which is size even smaller than a matchbook, for those who are not familiar with it, and you have moving parts in it, that's just disaster waiting to happen.
Horror story. Motor drives, they're about the size of a compact flash card. They were holding more of the storage before they started coming out with these 4 gig cards. I know somebody who it just slipped out of his pocket and it was dead. Lost everything on the card. I've seen these compact flash cards go through washing machines, run over. They did the tests up in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They stand tough.
It's crazy out there. You just got to be really careful, especially if you want to do gigs, photography gigs out there. The smart medias, they're similar to the compact flash card, but they're shaped differently.
Yeah.
I think
Those
that's
are
the
flatters,
Sony. Yeah,
yeah.
those are the Sony ones. If you look at the Sony Vaio laptops, they're starting, and a couple of others. I'm not sure if IBM does it, but I know Sony's one of the bigger ones. They'll have their own style slot for their
Slots for their
cards
cards,
built in, which is pretty nice, but then again, you're locked in to theirs. If you buy a Canon, you can get a compact flash card, which is made by 3 or 4 different companies, and that's nice to know that there's actually a possible price war at times.
Something to note, compact flash is used by a wide variety of pro cameras like Nikon, Canon, Fuji cameras as well.
And just as important as storage is the batteries we have to talk about, because we will go through batteries like crazy. Every time you look at after a gig, my batteries are almost dead, and I'm recharging like crazy. I always buy about 4 or 5 batteries, no matter what. Anything I buy, the first thing I'm purchasing is extra batteries.
You can never go into a job with 2 little batteries. Those are what will make or break you, basically.
Also, battery packs are something that you might want to look into. The Canon that I have the side grip, which also holds 2 additional batteries. Yeah, the BP.
Yeah.
Holds 2 additional ones, and that extends, basically doubles the life
Exactly.
right there. And I always carry the charger with me. While I swap out the batteries, I throw the other 2 basically on the charge, and you're basically round the clock. Then all you're really worried about is whether or not your storage device
That's
is
one
gonna get
investment
full.
I made, and it was a smart investment. as well.
Exactly. The different types you have is you have your double A's, which are mostly for smaller cameras.
And on-camera flash as well.
But also some of the medium format cameras, they have the double A pack,
Okay.
It's like you load them up like a shotgun or whatever and throw them in there in addition to whatever else you're going to have powered. You have your non-rechargeables, which is basically everything else out there. Rechargeable nickel metal hydride, or NIMH ones. That's basically the ones you see everywhere out there as a rechargeable. And then you have the ones, I think these are also Sony brand, because I've seen them on the Sonys. High capacity disposable CRV3s.
Yeah, I think that's like a combination battery pack.
I think so. I just can't recall. I should have looked it up before we came up here. The other thing you have to be careful with is those proprietary rechargeable batteries. Especially if you buy a camera and you can only use their battery alone. Then you're kind of screwed if you're out there on the field and you can't really do anything else when you're dead.
One thing you got to make note of is always plan to upgrade. You buy a camera, they come out with a new model like in 6 months. So keep in mind what your batteries are and your storage. And that's
one of the good things I do like about Canon. Canon uses the same style batteries for each one of its models.
Exactly.
I have a 10D. 6 months after I bought the 10D, they disowned it, became a stepbrother basically, and they came out with the 20 now. The 20 is nice. I'm happy with the 10D.
I'm happy with the 10 as well.
Exactly. If I had the money, basically, to go out and just splurge on a new camera, no, I wouldn't buy the 10D. I'd probably go out and get me a medium format with a 22 megapixel. For those of you who understand what I'm talking about out there.
H1's
Exactly. I agree on that one.
top
One thing I like to point out is a lot of cameras brag about movies and sounds. If you're going to buy a digital still camera, my personal professional opinion, you buy the camera for that, to take still photos. I don't care about if it takes video. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's just another thing to kind of attract your attention. It's, why would you get a motion camera to take stills?
Exactly. The Canon DV camera I have is not going to take still photos like the Canon 10D.
It's like about a 1 megapixel camera.
Yeah, exactly. No way. You can get a decent 8x10, 5x7 out of it, but the colors and everything else, it's just not so.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about if it's interlaced, not interlaced, but that's a whole nother segment right there. We're going to be getting into a little bit more of the technical issues on this one. We're going to be talking about the exposure settings. Basically, all digital cameras let you shoot in fully automatic mode. For those of you who are just basically starting out, this is the area you're going to be playing in. You're going to be doing the sports one, the scenic one, the still one. You have your low light. For some of them do give you that option. Later on, as you go on, you're going to be messing around with the aperture and shutter priority modes, working with a lot of the full autos, which will be your manual. No, that's what I'm talking about. There you go. The priority modes that digital SLRs give you. And that will let you set all the variables on there, which will give you an adaptability to any situation. So if you're going out there and you're doing a gig and you're running in a fashion shoot, which has happened to me on times, and when you're going from the indoors and you're doing a low key setting, and then all of a sudden, bang, you get an idea. Okay, let's go out to the fire escape or let's go up to the roof. And now you're outdoors. You got to get all your settings and everything else. After a while, what your settings are going to be rough if you don't want to use your meter on that. Of course, we always recommend you use a meter, but these manual modes are going to allow you to set the aperture and the priority on there. And I'm sure, Don, you've constantly went crazy.
The two modes I use on my camera is manual, of course, majority of the time, and aperture priority second. I've done PJ stuff, and it comes in handy when you're moving fast.
And a lot of things we're looking at basically is, I think the important thing is when we're doing our fashion work is the depth of field on there. How sharp and clear the eyes are compared to the shoulders, how close you really want to get. You really want to get that feel that when you, on the magazines out there, don't care about the background, you do care about the background. When you're dealing with fashion photography, commercial photography, you're just trying to take everything into account. One also thing on when you're dealing with your exposure settings, don't look to Photoshop for everything. Try to get as close as possible as what you want on the raw data itself.
I've seen too many photographers rely on Photoshop, and when it comes down to it, they're looking at a 10-hour night, and they have to get up and work again in the morning.
Exactly. Fix pimples, little hair things, eye coloring, maybe small things. Photoshop, yes. Big things, unless you're a desktop publisher working on magazine ads. Yeah, Photoshop, whatever, Quark Express, anything else you're going to use, it's for that. Once you're figuring out what the exposure settings are, and you're basically killing the guy over at Best Buy or CompUSA, One of the other important things that you're going to need to deal with is the menus. I like my Canon 10D because there's an equal amount of menus as to the outside buttons. You got the big wheel button for your thumb, the thumb wheel, and then you have basically the index finger button. Between those two, I can work the camera while still having it up to my face.
Exactly.
Which is much easier.
That's great, yeah. It just, it just goes with the flow. I have the 10D as well. It's a fabulous camera. Canon's speed with their body design is just excellent.
And the way they created the menu, they basically created a one-level menu, which is perfect. Everything you need is right there.
Exactly.
You hit the button, scroll down to what you want, and then you make your adjustment settings.
Exactly.
Some of the smaller cameras, inexpensive cameras, you can either get one or two things. You're going to get no menu, basically, a menu that really doesn't give you what you want, or you're going to have too many menus that you got to drill down 20, 30 minutes of going down.
Part of that reason is because with these smaller cameras, you're sacrificing the control, and what it lacks in control, they put in menus. So they call it portrait mode or night mode or something like that.
Yeah, and you'll see basically all the little icon images that they'll let you do it, and there's really not much you can do on that one.
And it gets tough.
Yeah, it does after a while, especially if you're trying to do some quick shooting, and for some reason you forgot to reset your camera, and you have it still set on the last portrait that you did, which just happened to me a couple of times, and I'm wondering why the images aren't coming out. I left it at an ISO 4 or 800 that I did a low key, and here I am outside and everything's coming. I'm like, oh man.
Gotta move fast.
Exactly. The last thing we're going to be talking about right now, it's about white balance. And what white balance does, it gives the camera a reference point to what white should look like. You can use a card to do so. You can use what's now called an expo disc, and I use that constantly. It does wonders.
That's the one that screws right in front of you.
Yeah, the little white disc. You just throw it on. It's not expensive, about $60. And if you do what we do, $60 is just a drop in the bucket.
I can tell you a cheap way of achieving white balance. I actually got this off of the internet, and it worked fairly accurate. Coffee filters. You just got to make sure it's neutral.
Right.
Like a white. You just rubber band that thing to the top of your lens and point it to your light source. It comes out pretty accurate.
And when you say neutral, can you explain to us what?
Well, the three neutral colors they kind of control how your other colors fall. It's white, gray, and black. As long as the camera knows what that is, as long as the computer knows what that is, that's what the printer will give you when it comes out.
So you're going to basically have to check on the manual if the camera is able to know. Because I even know the Canon right here, mini DV that I have, you can even set a white balance on that one.
I think that the smaller consumer brands, they have their program modes. But
yeah, mostly it's a program mode, I think, as you say, is correct on that one. But I'd rather have
definitely
customized white balance on that one.
Exactly.
All right, that takes care of that one. We'll be right back after this off break.
You are listening to That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nickycruz.com.
All right, welcome back. We're here with Don Brody, and we're talking about converting to an all-digital format. And this part one is about the digital camera. Stay tuned for the next two segments. Hopefully it will be later on this month. And we will be talking about your computer and how to set it up to start receiving digital images, Photoshop, stuff like that. And also your printer, which is the biggest killer that I don't think a lot of people understand when it deals with printing. Biggest problem there is color match. And nobody understands really color. There's an actual science to color match. All right, just to keep recap on what we talked about today. We talked about match the megapixel that you want to use. Basically, you're going to use a 3 megapixel if you want to do an 8x10 print. Anything larger than 8x10, you want to go to at least 4 megapixel plus. Since Canon uses 6, you're very much into the safe zone. I think you can probably get a good 11x17.
Yep, I think the largest I've seen was a 16x19. I think that's the aspect ratio.
And not only that, depending on who you go to for your printer, they might be able to even increase that because of the software that they're looking for. Another thing you want to look at is look for rechargeable batteries and the charger. If you're going to purchase this, make sure you at least get 2 or 3 extra batteries to go with it, and make sure you get a recharger.
Always be prepared.
The charger you might want to go for actually may also be one that's for home in addition to one that's for the car. I've seen a couple of them that do have car adapters on there. Normally, I like to go ahead and buy a charger, leave one home, and then put one in the kit.
Exactly.
So I'm always buying double on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm always broke, because I'm buying two of them. Right? If you're buying a point-and-shoot camera, you're going to want something that has at least 2 times optical zoom. Stay away from digital, plain and simple. No offense or buts, I'm not going to promote digital zoom, period.
It's not acceptable.
Exactly. Just don't need... Save your time, save your breath, save your money. Make sure that you can use removable storage media. I don't really think that there's many out there that have just only built-in, but there's still a lot of people buying on eBay.
Yeah, a lot of people are buying.
They're buying the older products because they want to get into it. They just don't want to go out and spend the money, which is okay. But at least try to be smart when you make the purchase. Make a purchase that's going to last a little bit longer.
Yeah, we're talking about investments. So.
Exactly. And not only that, this purchase is supposed to make you money also on the long run. So that's one thing you want to look for. Speaking of which, you're going to want to avoid cameras that use a floppy disk. And I recommend, I don't know about you, Don, try to avoid cameras that use the compact disc or the DVDs.
I'm not a fan of those at all. It's just using the CDs and DVDs, tossing them aside.
Not only that, they're somewhat slow.
Yeah,
from what I've seen so far. Slow. And you still have your 650 meg on some of them. Some of them you have less. But still, the way you got to take it out, the way it's got to format on some things like that. I'm not sure what the newer models are like, but when they were coming out a year ago, last I've seen, they were kind of slow. Not only that, they're really bulkier. Yeah. The other thing you might want to do is when you get a CompUSA, try the camera before you buy it. I'm getting a little happy here. Go ahead, talk to the customer service rep. Sometimes they have the camera there. Sometimes they have it, but it's not plugged in, or the battery's dead, or whatever it is. Just ask them if you have a working model on that one.
I just want to say something to that. The job of a photographer, being a photographer, it's no different from being like a mechanic or like a plumber. You got the tools to do the job. And now the same thing with the tools. It's just like driving a car. You're not going to buy the thing without test driving it.
Right, exactly.
That's what you want to do.
And I agree with that totally. You want to make sure that the customer service rep can also tell you what the difference is between the two cameras that you're looking for. You'll see two of them, different models, different companies, different prices. Try to figure out what's the difference between them. Not only that, is the difference something that you really need? I know I've seen cameras out there, and you can basically have secret communication with the space aliens out there. Do you really need that? No, is it really worth it? The other thing,
on everybody's.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that a lot of these come with is some sort of imaging editing software. Now, depending on what level you're at, this is what I recommend. And then, Don, I'll go ahead and let you put down your recommendations. If you're getting into this game, Photoshop. No ifs, ands, or buts. Go out, spend the $500-600 for it. It's going to last you. The amount of time you're going to spend on it, it's going to be a lot better than using one of these broken down LE versions that they send with it. What do you think?
I totally agree with you. Photoshop is the way to go. I know Canon cameras come with the DPP software, which is pretty good, and they give upgrades to that. But it's CS2. You plug those raw files in. It can handle it from any camera. Great investment.
The other thing we have to talk about, basically, is don't base your decision on video capability. As we said before, you're buying a still camera to go ahead and take still photos. That's
exactly.
It.
Not what you want to do.
If you want to take videos, that's fine. Go buy a video camera for that. This is one place you don't want to cut corners and try to have a half on it. No, wouldn't recommend that. And also, you can invest on a memory card reader. It acts like a hard drive, so you can basically plug it up to your laptop or your computer and just leave it there. When you go out in field, you can go ahead and download your images down to the hard drive on there.
It will take less time than downloading straight from your camera as well.
Also, when you're buying your memory card, go ahead and buy several of them. Try not to go ahead and buy that 4 gig, and when you shoot that wedding, have the whole thing on there. Yeah. Try to go ahead and get like 4 1 gigs.
Split up the responsibility.
Play it safe, because even in film, it's hard, because when you have all these rolls of film and you put them in batches to go get done, you want to put them in separate batches, which is the equivalent to each one of a memory card. Exactly. And I remember doing a wedding where we had 2 separate batches, and there were 12 rolls in each batch, which we probably should have put them even smaller after, hindsight's 2020. and they processed them all wrong. I'm not going to say the place because they were a really good place we worked with in San Francisco at the time. They did wonderful work. This was an accident. It was a costly accident. Yeah. They worked perfectly with us. So I'm just not going to say anything on who it was for negative publicity on them.
There's always a new guy ready.
Exactly. It was a new guy, and he dumped both batches into the wrong solution and just ruined it. We ended up having to turn everything into... Yeah, exactly. A moral to that story, the same thing can happen with your memory card. You drop a memory card, you lose it. 4 gig, whole wedding, nothing to give to the client.
Exactly.
The client wants something. It's either going to get the finished product or he's going to get his money. And you've already spent some of that money. So now it's really coming out of your pocket.
So a little bit is better than none at all.
Exactly. A lot of clients are understanding.
Yes,
they might want to do a reshoot. You do the reshoot for free, stuff like that.
Exactly.
You come up with an agreement, but don't come up to a client and not have anything in your hands and expect them to just forgive you like that. Not going to happen.
Doesn't happen.
Well, that's going to cut it for this segment. I'd like to thank Don Brody. If you want to contact Don Brody, you can contact him email at donb118@yahoo.com. If you want more information, you can go down to the website www.nickicruz.com/media, and you can see a link and a list of more info bio for Don. Don, thank you for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to see you again later in the future. And that's a wrap for this segment. Stay tuned for our next segment coming up right after this.
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nickicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nickicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Okay, welcome back. We have Suzanne Brindamore here. For our next song, we're going to be talking about A Million Little Pieces on her sophomore album, You Are Here. And you can find her album on CD Baby. It's $14 for the CD, and compared to today's prices, that's one bargain for that. The CD's worth it. You get it, you're going to be looking for her first album. What's the name of your first album?
It's self-titled, just Suzanne Brindamore.
And you'll be able to find it also on cdbaby.com. Suzanne, tell me a little bit about A Million Little Pieces.
This is one of those songs, often I'm inspired to write when times are tough, and this was one where I was very, very happy in a relationship, and it just, so happy that you could burst, and I took that another step further into, bursting into a million little pieces. So it's just a very upbeat, happy song.
Sometimes
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
Interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Welcome back to That's Rap Radio, and this is your host Carlos Cruz, and in this segment we're going to be talking about getting into the modeling industry. First of all, before I even begin anything, I just want to start off by saying that if you are under the age of 18, I highly recommend that you go ahead and speak to your parents about your interest in the modeling industry. What you can do and use this show is to gather the information as to more specifics. The more detailed information you give your parents, the more they get to see that you're truly interested in this. And it's basically, they're not going to have too many other questions other than financial questions to ask you, or even to look up themselves, since you already know where in the modeling industry you will be able to go. And with that said, there are just a lot of different types of modeling that you can do. You have, for instance, fashion modeling, you have body parts modeling, commercial modeling, you have glamour modeling, and there's a whole bunch of subcategories that fall underneath that. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the fashion modeling, and that's usually the first thing that just bumps out to everybody. You look at TV and you see these high glam shots. If you look in the magazines, you'll see a lot of high glam for Hugo Boss, Abercrombie and Finch. You have a whole bunch of other department stores that you'll also see some of the high fashion and medium fashion style. But basically, for fashion modeling, the garment and beauty product industries are basically what's looking for people to represent them. They're looking for people that are basically someone who's tall and slender, a little leggy, and somewhat of a long neck. I'm not going to say a goose neck, but just a little longer neck just adds on to the feel. So let me just go over some of the things that they're going to probably also look for. For women, 5'9" and at least a 6. For men, 6 feet and 40 regular. Now, here's the important thing. Doesn't matter exactly if you're 5'9", size 6, or a 6 foot tall, 40 regular kind of guy. You need the look. That is what could probably get you in the door and on that either runway or in front of that camera. You need to have the look. You need to make the clothing come alive. You need to basically capture the person who's walking by either that magazine or looking at that commercial on the TV. You have to basically captivate them. How are you going to do that? You'll know as soon as you get there. How are they going to know that? They know what they're looking for. And you just might not know that you're the next in thing, so to say, for the modeling industry. So, according to several sources, this is what basically they're looking for. Like I said, you don't have to actually fit the 5'9", 6 foot tall, perfect Amazon goddess, godlike type. You need to have the look. But if you have these additional ones, you're really working your way into the door itself for the fashion modeling. They're looking for someone who's basically small to medium boned. They want to make sure that you're fit but not buff. They want to make sure that you have a long, graceful neck. Remember, like I said, not a goose neck, but just long and graceful. Square jaw, high cheekbones, eyes should be wide set, almond shaped, thick eyelashes. They always love thick eyelashes. Your skin, which is really important, it should be clear, small pored, even toned with no scars, tattoos, or any type of piercings. But if you have any tattoos, don't worry about it. Don't let that be a depressant. Don't go out there and try to have them removed with a sandblaster or anything else to that. Just go ahead and see where it gets you. Your lips should be medium to full, and your teeth should be straight and white. I think the white's the important thing there, but we're not going to go too much detail into that. Your shoulders should be broad, and you should have somewhat of a long-legged look. Just to add on basically on how tall you are. It helps out on the fashion runway, I guess. You should also have a good posture, which is important. So if you don't have one now, you better start practicing. And the ability to carry yourself gracefully. And if you're not sure exactly what that is, you'll learn, because I'm sure they're going to tell you. Your hair, make sure that's healthy and good condition. I'm sure you're going to have a bad hair day every now and then, but in this modeling industry, since other people are taking care of your hair, you really are not going to have to worry about that. But then again, you never know. In the fashion modeling industry, there are some subcategories, and these include editorial modeling. Editorial modeling deals basically with the Vogue, Elle, Glamour, Cosmos, magazines like that. And what happens here is they have a lot of editorial pages that they have to fit each month, and they're just basically taking a guessing game as to what's the next latest fashion craze is going to be. It's a hit and miss. You've seen it. Even the craziest things have made fashion style out there. I need not say anything because those who grew up in the 70s and 80s know exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to just leave that one alone right now. You have runway modeling, and this deals basically with clothing designers. They're showing off their collections, the fall or spring collection, to prospective buyers. So basically, you're just out there strutting your stuff. You've seen it before. If you haven't seen it, I'm not quite sure where you've been. You also have catalog modeling, and I think this is basically the biggest modeling in addition to print modeling that there is. Basically, you're picked out for a project because they want to represent a market segment for what the catalog is targeting. If you're not sure what I mean, just go ahead and pick up a J.C. Penney catalog, a Macy's catalog, and any other type of clothing catalog where they have models in it. Perfect way to practice, perfect way to see what's the latest thing going on, whether or not you also have that look. If you have a look that's similar to what you see in the magazines, you need to be heading over to an agency. But don't head over right now. Just wait until we get a little further down the road, and I'll be explaining that a little bit later. To continue, print modeling is basically the same thing, but is basically for print advertising specific instead of catalogs. You have, of course, your lingerie and your bathing suit and your fitness. Now, with these three, you need to make sure that you have a very toned and proportionate body. Well, I'm going to throw out proportionate out there, but just make sure that your body's toned. We'll let others judge whether or not you have the right proportions for them. For the fitness modeling, there's a lot more fitness and health and outdoor lifestyle magazines that are coming out now. So if you have a toned body, you go out to the gym, you work out, you take care of yourself, this may be one area where you may want to go into. You also have fit modeling, and try not to get fit modeling and fitness modeling confused. Fitness modeling is dealing with fitness itself, any type of extracurricular activity, sports, yada yada. Fit modeling is dealing with a model that has perfect proportions for a certain clothing size. So if you're a 26, 36, 34, yada yada, something like that, or whatever the underwear models or the underwear industry, certain shirts or skirts are looking for, then basically you're it. And you can basically find that they will hire you on a full-time basis if you meet that criteria for having that perfect proportion. To get an example of that, just go ahead and look in newspapers, magazines. You'll see a lot of women in there that have a medium-sized build, and they're either in underwear or you'll see them in certain style outfits itself. You also have petite modeling, and that's anyone that's between 5'2" and 5'6". So we're not leaving out the lower end of the spectrum. And we also have plus size modeling, which are the sizes between 14, 16, and maybe slightly larger on that one. For petite and plus, you'll probably see a lot of print type work for yourself, whether it's editorial or the actual catalog magazines. You'll also see a lot of work out there probably for internet-based catalogs. Now moving along to another section of modeling is you have your body part modeling. And this basically, there's a gray line here for body part modeling. It is basically, or it falls into the section of both fashion and commercial. Of course, as it says, this is when they use just part of the body in a photograph, either to represent an item or a product, or your body part is being used to, how should I say, enhance another model because she either has dog feet, hands don't look so good, or there's just a certain part of her body that just needs to be filled in with something else. If you have good hands, good lips, good eyes, basically you'll be good for this. So take a look at them, especially your feet. A lot of dogs out there that need a lot of help, but if you're one of the few that do have good feet, you just might be able to get some good work out there. Moving right along on the segment, commercial modeling is just basically as it is for fashion modeling. It is basically the catch-all. If it doesn't fall under fashion and it's not glamour, it's basically commercial. Your physical requirements, they're going to vary. It depends on who's looking for what, and that's basically how it goes. The reason for that is some of the subcategories that you have for commercial modeling is you have product, and of course what you're doing there is you're trying to sell a product itself or show how the product is used. One of the other things that you might hear is that you will try to convey an image about the product. It's good to use, it's easy to use, people are happy with it. Start looking at advertisements much more carefully. Don't just look at, the whole picture. Break it down. You want to see what the model is holding, how the model is standing, what are they doing, are they smiling, are they crying, what message are they trying to convey. As soon as you can start learning how to decipher that, you're going to be much more important to the industry itself, because now you can grab any product out there and you know exactly what to do with it once the client tells you what they're trying to convey. You also have lifestyle modeling, and this is basically life itself. Everything you do, all types of occupations. If you're a doctor using a stethoscope or an x-ray machine, or you're a dentist or you're a fireman, you're just doing stuff that happens in everyday life. You're showing a period in that time. Another thing that they'll say is the concept of the idea of life. That's just a term that you might hear, and that's basically what they're talking about. It's the lifestyle. Included, or somewhat of a subcategory to that, is you have your corporate modeling, which is similar to lifestyle, but it's just everything that happens within the corporate office itself. Except for all the hanky-panky that may go on. But I didn't say that. Don't quote me on that, because we know that doesn't happen here. In addition to this, or in addition to product modeling, you have the product demo, which basically you will have a model that stands in front of a store or inside the mall, and they're handing out free samples. It could be free samples of perfume, makeup, maybe pens, or anything else. So when you go out to the mall, just look. If you see models out there, what are they doing? How are they acting? How can you be better than them? You just break it down. That's all it is. You just got to sit and study. It's all out there around you. Now, the thing is do you notice it? It's kind of like when you want a certain car and you're about to buy it, or you just bought it, and then you see everybody else around you with the same car. Before then, nobody had it because you really weren't looking around in your environment. The same thing that happens here. Next, we will move on to our glamour modeling. And glamour, that's a tough one. Basically, it's going to contain a sexual theme. That's what makes it so tough. But do you do it with your clothes on? Do your clothes off? It depends on who you're working for and what you're trying to do. Anytime you hear glamour, expect to take it off. It's going to be bikini, sexy outfits, lingerie. Now, you just have to understand as to, or you're going to have to basically put down what you're willing to do in terms of glamour. Are you willing to just wear lingerie, bikini, or are you willing to take it all off? That's something that you have to decide early in your game, whether or not you want to do this. Because the more more state of an undress you fall into, it's basically the more you start moving to the adult entertainment industry. And if that's something that you want to do, fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not knocking it. You know, I've enjoyed it myself, but that's another story, or at least another segment. But right now, it's something whether or not you are going to be willing to do. Sometimes you've heard of models out there, and there were just one big case that just happened not too long ago of who a famous actor now, or actress, took nude photos or topless photos, I'm not sure exactly what it was, several years before that actress became famous. Now they're in court trying to stop the publication of those photos. So whatever you do out there, just remember it's going to come back to bite you. So just make sure you plan your future properly. Yeah, there's no more that I can really say about that. You try to plan it out. You're going to make mistakes. Don't worry about it. Learn from them, because then they're just learning tools. They're not mistakes, actually. And then I'm sure we can go into arguments back and forth as to what a mistake and learning tool is. But I'm not worried about that. That's a whole nother segment story. But right now, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
You are listening to That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@NikkiCruz.com.
Welcome back. This is your host, Carlos Cruz. That's Rap Radio. And right now, we've been talking about the different types of modeling industries, and basically where you might fall into one of those subcategories or major categories for the modeling industry. Right now, what I want to talk about is, okay, once you decided where you're going to fall into, it can be one, it could be several, doesn't matter. Now what do? Okay, you're going to need a photo. Plain and simple. I know it sounds easy, but it's really not. Because you're going to need to take a photo of what industry you're going into. You don't want to go into lifestyle modeling and hand them all nudes. Or you don't want to go into a certain print style modeling for petite or whatever and hand them high fashion shots. So the shots you hand an agent or a client, they're going to have to match what you're going for. You can have a comp card, or a Z card as they call them, that has different style photos on it. That can be acceptable. But what I would recommend is that you have a comp card for each one of the genres that you're trying to get into, for each one of the industries that you're trying to get into. It'll just help you out. You can have one general one that mixes them all up the best you can and send that in addition with the others. But if you really want to get into this, you're going to need to make sure you start with one first and then see where that gets you. If it doesn't get you anywhere, then you know that this style industry is not working for you. You got another card to use. If you use a card that has a whole bunch of photos, you're not really sure why they're calling you for, what photo it is that they really want you for. The comp cards can take anywhere from one photo to several photos, and that can be one-sided or two-sided. Comp cards that are printed, they can vary in sizes. Most of the time you might see an 8x10 or slightly smaller 5x7 style card, and on that it's going to have just your general information, pretty good headshot for that, and maybe some description of what you do or where you can get contacted at. Now, moving a little bit to the side, I want to talk about the headshots for the actors. For those who are either models who might be interested in getting into the acting industry, you're going to want to specifically take a headshot with nothing else. That's going to be your calling card for the actors industry. Don't send in your comp card. Don't use your comp card. Just go ahead and use an 8x10. If you want to send an additional comp card with your 8x10, sure, it can hurt. Let's just say that. But you want that 8x10. Don't just send in a comp card with 50 million images on it. What you got to do basically is send in the 8x10 with your resume and any other information that they may want. Just remember, the headshot and the comp card, it's part of your marketing. It's a critical tool, and you need to make sure that you are on the money. This is what's going to determine whether or not you are making it in the industry. And what I mean by that, because I don't think I probably said that correctly, is how you market yourself is how people are going to perceive you. For me, for my photography, if I want to go deeper into the fashion or into the print, I'm going to have to make sure that I take photos specifically of that. If I want to go into the commercial architecture, I got to make sure I send in photos of that to all the agencies that I would work for, who's going to represent me. I'm not going to send them high fashion if I'm doing interior design photography. So basically, it just falls into the same thing. You'll have to know where you want to go. As soon as you do, life becomes a lot easier. The other thing is you're going to want to make sure you always carry your comp cards or headshots with you everywhere you go. Keep them in the car. There's a lot of printing places out there, and I will try to get them out on the website as soon as possible, of where you can just get 200, 250 for a reasonable price. Keep some in the car, keep some at work, keep some where you don't know who you're going to meet when you go. Even when you go on vacation, you're just not sure. Always be prepared. That's all I can basically say about that. And with that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back right after this.
You are listening to That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@VickyCruz.com.
Welcome back, and this is Carlos Cruz, your host, as if you really forgot. But it's been a long day today, so I'm just trying to finish this up without really going crazy. We've been talking about so far the types of modeling, whether or not you are aware of what you fall into. Your comp cards and your headshots, really what the difference is and how important they are to you. So once you have these two items, the third item you're going to need to do is you're going to find an agency. Now, I know some of you out there, you think you can do this on your own. Some of you may be correct. You might be able to get so far on your own, but sooner or later, you're going to need to find an agency. An agent who will represent you for whatever type of modeling or acting or anything else like that that you want to get into. These are the people that the big industries are really working with. Just remember that the agent is the bridge to the people who hire you. Plain and simple, for TV, film, and commercials. And yes, they look for models and actors for TV, film, and commercials. So if you're new to this, don't just think that you're going to end up on print spread. You can also end up on motion. No telling till you get in there. Now, understand that agencies will take a percentage of your paycheck, and that's natural. It can be from 10 to 20%. Remember that they will not, or they're not supposed to, charge you prior or have you pay them prior to your booking. So if anybody's saying, yeah, we can find you work, give me $300, get up, walk out. That's it. Plain and simple. The agency will find you work, tell you when you need to go, make confirmations, make traveling arrangements, anything that's needed for you to get where you need to go. The agency basically will receive the bill and they will send you a check. It might vary from agency to agency, so this is where you'll need to do your homework. It's very important that you do your homework. And understand that there's different types of agents out there. You have agents that are theatrical agents, that's basically for TV and film. You have those that are for commercials, which basically for commercials also. You have dance and print, which are basically photos only. You have your voiceover agents for the actors portions, that is. If you're a model, unless you're a speaking model also. Never know. I'm not going to go into that right now. So basically for voiceover, you have your TV, film, and radio. And you have also theater agents. And we will go over at a later date into more detail. As time goes on, I'm going to try to get more actual agencies on the show so they can at least give you more of an idea or more of a clue of what to do, how to present yourself properly to an agent, which will probably help you get work a lot faster. Now, for the agencies, you can either have one agency that hires you for everything, and that basically, the term used is signed across the board. So you have one guy, one person, taking care of all your industries that you're interested in doing. Or you can have several different industries, agencies, taking them down. Well, that's the end right now of our Down and Dirty segment for how to get started in modeling. Now, just remember, there's a whole bunch of other factors that go into it. I've just touched not even the tip of the iceberg. You're going to need to do your homework. As part of your homework, that's where this show comes in. We could try to give you information from the industry and from people who work in the industry itself. So hopefully you'll be able to get a lot of information that will assist you on your path to success. And that's what it really matters, is you making it somewhere, achieving your dream, and we're going to do what we can to help you. So I hope you enjoy this segment. We'll be right back with our next segment. And if you're a local model or actor from the Maryland, Virginia, or DC area, and you're working with or had worked with an agency that you would recommend very much, go ahead and send it to us at podcast@nikkicruz.com. We'd like to hear it, and we'll be more than happy to share it with everybody else. If you know of an agency, that'd be more than willing to come on to the show and discuss what they do and what they recommend for the models. Have them contact us, nikkicruz.com. That's NIKICRUZ. And we'll be more than happy to bring them on the show. That's what the show is all about. It's about bringing you the information and giving you the tools you need. Till then, see you in the next segment.
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
Interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Okay, welcome back. We have Sunda Brindamore here, and you can listen to her and the band live, Jam and Java, over at Vienna, Virginia. If you're not sure where it's at, you can go to jamandjava.com, or you can give them a call at 703-255-1566. And if you're really connecting to the songs that Suzanne is giving you today, and I'm sure you are, you can find her CD over at cdbaby.com. Suzanne, Worlds Away. Talk to me on that one.
Okay. I actually wrote that song with my little backpacker guitar that I had taken with me to Europe. And I was traveling on a train through northern Italy when I got inspired. I was reflecting on a relationship back at home and kind of feeling worlds away and trying to decide whether I wanted to stay in that relationship or not. And so it's kind of got reflections of my travels there and reflections of a relationship back home.
I wake up in another country from where I lay down. Not the same, but the churches and the castles still remain. I see the green against the sky. Wipe the sleep out of my eyes. I wonder what I'll find today. I know from you I'm worlds away. Headed out to the square. I don't speak the language there, but I try, walk the town, miss the train, start to cry. I see the steeples in the sky. Wipe the smoke out of my eyes. I wonder shame. I see the sunshine leave your eyes. Wipe the tears and say goodbye, yeah. Although I'm here with you today, all I can say, I know from you I'm worlds away. I see the stars up in the sky, and I wipe the tears out of my eyes. Ooh, I wonder what I'll find today. I know from you I'm worlds
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
Interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Welcome to That's a Rap Radio, and we have with us today Stephen Fisher, who's a writer, producer, director, also been known as Emmy nominated for his 2000 PSA Silence of the Falling Leaves, which honored the Polish POWs murdered in World War II. Stephen, I'd like to thank you for coming.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We see that you have a very wide and extensive background dealing with voiceovers, film, production. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started?
It was a very audacious kind of start. I literally just declared myself a producer and went out in the world and started pounding the pavement in that role. Literally since childhood, elementary school, junior high, high school, I was always creating, always drawing stories, always writing little books, always recording my own audio productions with my sister, Michelle. And so by the time I was about 15 or 16 or 17, I had this track record. You know, granted, it was just little things that I was doing at home that never went anywhere. But in my mind, it was a track record. It was something that established me. And I had all this experience. And it came time for me to go public with it. It was something I felt I wanted to do. So I did with Stephen Bluey.
Now, Stephen Bluey, can you tell the audience out there what the correlation between Stephen Bluey and Underneath the Bed is all about?
Underneath the Bed. Well, the first book came out in 91 was called There's a Blue Dog Under My Bed, and I have no idea what that title means. It's just a fun title. But the Stephen Bluey comedy team as a unit is really inspired by my first loves, Abbott and Costello and Laurel and Hardy and Martin and Lewis, comedy teams that I just naturally gravitated to as a kid and found instinctively very funny and close to my heart, and I was totally into what they were doing, what those geniuses were doing.
For your Emmy-nominated work, Silence of the Falling Leaves, how did that come about?
That was for TCI Communications of Baltimore. I was making videos for them, promotion videos at the time, and the Polish National Alliance was a client of theirs, and TCI had given the Alliance money to promote the National Katyn Memorial, which is erected in Baltimore, in Fells Point. And so it was my job to make a PSA that promoted not only the monument, but the fact that TCI was involved in giving money. So I met with the fellow who was promoting the whole event, the unveiling of the monument, and he told me the story of what happened in the Katyn Forest in 1940 about these Polish prisoners of war who were murdered in a conspiracy by the Russians, and it touched me. I took it to heart. I was so inspired by the story that I had heard. And when I left that meeting, I was driving my car down Reisterstown Road, and I started thinking about the story and all of these. The murder itself happened in the forest, in the Katyn Forest. So I started thinking about all these forest imagery and leaves, and it was in the autumn, so I was thinking about leaves that were turning reds and yellows and browns and falling from the tree as they do. And it just made sense to me that was a symbol, a natural symbol for these soldiers who fell in the forest. So very quickly, almost, the project came together, this concept of just going out into the woods. And literally it was just a couple of us that went out with a little Super 8 film camera and shot a bunch of leaves blowing in the wind and falling to the ground, and shot it very much in a almost World War II documentary-esque style, which is why we chose Super 8mm film. Had the lab wash out the color, make it look very faded. Really used cuts only in the edit, just to make it stylized from that period of time.
I also hear that you trained in London also. Can you tell us a little bit about that, your experiences there?
Some people do the New York thing, some people do the LA thing. It just happened in my life, I did the London thing. That's just how it worked out. I was about 19. I had an opportunity to live with some family in London, and so I took advantage of it and spent 3 years pounding the pavement, knocking on doors, literally radio stations with the Stephen Bluey radio show, television studios with the Stephen Bluey animated TV show, book publishers, syndicates for the comic strip. I mean, there's no stone was left unturned, and that really was my school of hard knocks.
Where can people get more information about Stephen Bluey?
They can go to steveandbluey.com, the official website.
How do you spell Bluey?
Bluey is Bluey.
So can you tell us about some of the productions that you've done, last production that you've been working on in the Baltimore area, and how that's basically affected you and the way you work with the society around here?
Freedom Dance retells the story of Edward Hilbert and his wife Judy, who escaped Hungary in 1956 during the Revolution, and they spent 4 months on the road as refugees. Edward is an artist, he's a cartoonist and an animator, and during his 4 months on the road he kept a journal of his escape and the adventures that he had and the people that he was meeting. But he kept this journal in cartoon form, so it's basically a series of single panel cartoons that illustrates these adventures and these experiences. So the documentary focuses on those 4 months of his life and the fact that somebody going through this traumatic experience would even think to take the time to draw some cartoons, as almost in a therapeutic sense, just to get through such a dramatic and traumatic experience and to try and understand it.
Are you using a lot of voiceover characters for this documentary?
No, you know what? The soundtrack is comprised, right now anyway, of interviews of Judy and Edward and a narrator, and that's it. That's it for voices.
I'm sure you've done a lot of narration, behind-the-scenes voiceovers for production itself. Somebody's interested out there in going to that. What would you recommend that they would start with?
I think honing their own skill first, privately.
Developing the voice, stuff like that.
And being comfortable with it, and making their own discoveries about their range, their personal range, and their interests, what kind of voices, the limitations that they have with their voices.
Was it hard for you to get used to your voice when you were first hearing? Because I know when I first got on radio, it was, that's my voice. I can't, oh my God, I sound like that. After a while, you do get used to it.
I'm still not used to my voice. I'm going to listen to this show, and I'll still be critical. But see, for me, I keep it in perspective. I listen to my speaking voice and I say, all right, it is what it is. But if I didn't have that voice, I wouldn't be able to channel Bluey or any of these other characters the way that I can. So it's, sort of a trade-off. But just to continue with your question, I mean, the way I experimented with voices, and I certainly didn't do anything unique, nothing that anyone else doesn't do. I mean, as a teenager, I was always playing and experimenting with voices and vocal intonations and accents and just having fun with it. And as I say, with my sister Michelle, creating all of these original audio productions with the stockpile of characters that we each had and we each performed, that just from doing that for so many years, like maybe 9 years or more before going public, that in that 9 years I learned a lot about what I could do, what I was comfortable with. So by the time I went to some open call at an agency somewhere and introduced myself and tried to get into a professional world, I was basically established in my mind. I had already had some training.
Is there any particular place in the Baltimore area that you specifically look for if you were to find or look for actors or voiceover talent? Or is it basically the in-network where the producers and filmmakers basically talk among themselves of people they worked with in the past?
I think there is some of that, this in-network, as you say, going to an ITVA meeting or a Women in Film meeting and just congregating with people and getting to know people and getting to know people through these people and working with these people and learning and networking. That's certainly one way. But these days, with the internet, it's very easy for anybody just to sort of enter a casting agency in a directory somewhere and find a list of names and numbers and just start calling and sort of make their own conclusions about which one is the best.
Well, like you said, it goes back to the point, you just got to pound the pavement. If you're really determined in this, you got to go knock on doors, drop them off, and you got to be ready for people to tell you no. Because I'm sure being a producer, you've heard no many, many a time. But since you were determined, look where you're at now. You're actually producing Emmy Awards. I'm looking at your profile right here, and you got awards up the wazoo right now. And these are awards to really be proud of from all the hard work that you've done. I really don't need that. So before we leave, can we get a little sample of Stephen Bluey?
I haven't even done his voice in literally in 2 years. All I know is it's an explosion, so we'll have to really ride the levels. And hopefully I won't blow out the diaphragm on the microphone.
Just to hit that distance then.
Hey, this is Bluey, the dog half of the Stephen Bluey comedy team, and gosh darn it, you're listening to Rats and what are you listening to? That's Rap Radio with your host and my new friend, Carlos, how do you say your last name? Carlos Cruz, my new friend. Let's go for pizza. What do you say? It's on you.
All right, we're going for pizza, and that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to our show. And that was Stephen Fisher. If you want more information on Stephen Fisher, you can go to stephenbluey.com, and that's Bluey as in Bluey. Thank you very much, Stephen, for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Hey, thanks, Carlos.
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.
Welcome back. We're talking to our musical guest today, Suzanne Brindamore. Suzanne, what is it that I hear about Nashville and Please? How are those two related?
Yeah, this next song, Please, was mixed in Nashville. My producer, Mark Williams, who, by the way, is just an amazing talent. He plays electric guitar on the CD, as well as produced the CD. As he got more involved and started playing on the songs, he got more interested and produced it. And he recommended that we mix with Dan Strain in Nashville, who did a phenomenal job. It was a little interesting and tough, though. In the beginning, what we would do is we'd send our tracks down, because everything's digital, you know, and we can put everything on CDs these days and just put the files on CDs and send them down. So he mixed Please, and actually, it didn't come out exactly the way I had hoped. So that was one song that we reworked quite a bit. I was trying to keep the acoustic feel while having, you know, the electric guitar and things like that. Then what we did is for the rest of the CD, we went down and we mixed with him, and it was just a wonderful experience. And in the end, you know, I'm very pleased with how Please came out.
Every time he goes, I get weak. Wanna wrap myself around and bring him to his knees and say, please, please don't leave. I can safely say I'd never felt the kind of love which men fought battles over long ago. But with you, my love, I understand. I can see the gates of heaven when you hold my hand. Please, please don't leave. There's something special about you which sets you apart. And I think that I could always love you. You have my heart. When I look at you, I feel the earth moving gently underneath and cradling me like its child. Thought I'd become immune to passion's wiles. Now I'm rendered still and breathless when you flash a smile. Please,
Okay, we're back again with Suzanne Brindamore. And if you want to see Suzanne live, you can go over to Jam and Java. That's over at 231 Maple Avenue over at Vienna, Virginia. If you want to contact them, Jam and Java that is, you can contact them 703-255-1566. Call extension 8. I'm not sure what the other extensions send you, but just to be on the safe side, ask for extension 8 on there. Suzanne, tell me about some of the band members that you work with.
Yeah, these guys are really wonderful. They're not only great musicians, but they're great people, but extremely talented, and they are the same guys, which is really wonderful for me, that recorded with me on the CD. As I mentioned, my producer and electric guitarist Mark Williams, he used to be in the band Jonas A, which had quite a following in the area and toured with Vertical Horizon and Hootie and the Blowfish. On drums, Elliot DeLuca, who's a phenomenal, hard-hitting drummer. And my bassist, Jerry Stewart. He's not only an awesome bassist, but he's a great backup vocalist, so he provides some wonderful harmonies. So really, together, they're just a great group, and they've played together for years, so there's just a nice relationship going on there.
So tell me, for your last song that we'll be playing for our segment today, Try. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Try is near and dear to my heart. I kind of had a couple friends in mind, and my own struggles when I wrote it, because it's really about, you know, how we try so hard sometimes and we just feel like it's not enough, it's not good enough. And so that same spirit actually was what interested a local filmmaker into using the song in a film that's going to be coming up. And I'm sorry I don't have the title, but you'll be able to find the information on your website, on my website.
And what's your website?
My website is SuzanneBrindamore.com. And Suzanne is SUZANNE. Then Brindamore is BRINDAMOUR, like amour, like the French love. So SuzanneBrindamore.com. You can find all sorts of information out there about upcoming shows and such. But anyway, so I'm thrilled the song's going to be used in this film, and yeah, I hope everybody out there will enjoy listening to it.
And we'll be able to get more information on that film later on our websites. And right now, we'd like to thank you for listening to That's Rap Radio. And here's Suzanne Brindamore with Try.
I know it isn't easy for you. All your secrets weigh you down. Weigh you down. And you're much too young to carry all this weight. And you're much too old to carry all this weight. And you try so hard. You try so hard. All you do, it doesn't seem enough to you. You recall so few good memories, while the cradle rocked you fast. You fell down, and soon you learned that everything's your fault. And as you grew, no one ever said it's not. So you try so hard. You try so hard. And all you do, it doesn't seem enough to you. Enough to you. You won't let it happen. You won't let it happen. You won't let it. You won't let it. You won't let it happen again. Now you always watch your back. Love has always let you down. Let you down. And trouble follows everywhere you go. And your self-worth has reached an all-time low. Till you try
You are listening to the That's a Wrap podcast with your host, Carlos Cruz.
A podcast focused on bringing you local area arts and entertainment, news, reviews,
Interviews, and anything else we can come up with to keep you informed.
We want to thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell other podcasters about our show.
We also look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or comments for the show, you can contact us by using telephone or Skype at 1-301-476-0709.
Email us at podcast@nikkicruz.com.
Our website and audio archive can be found at www.nikkicruz.com.
That's NIKICRUZ.com.